Hello, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome to this summit. This is under Majlis Pelancongan Malaysia. We call it the Malaysia Tourism Council, and this is a Gold Summit 2020. Right. So this is my presentation: excessive development, a treated tourism sector, or in bahasa Malaysia is ancaman pembangunan yang terlebih kepada sektor pelancongan. And this is a case study in the Cameron Highland. Alright. And my name is professional technologist Dr. Basharuddin bin Abdul Hadi. Actually, in my field is civil engineering. So I'm a senior lecturer at the UiTM Pulau Pinang and almost 10 years in a Cameron Highland doing research, especially for the slope failure. And this is a very nice scenery. It's very green about the Cameron Highland. And is we call it for the same engineer. We know that the first landslide reported in 1963 in Malaysia is in Cameron Highland, and this is we call it a very nice, very beautiful to become a local and international tourist attraction place. And for example, we have a boti and they bring a tea or takes we call it green tea cakes in the tea farm. Especially, it's a very special when this tea farm in the middle of rainforest of Asia. And of course, in the Cameron also, it's a very known about the waterfall. For example, it's a Pirate Fall or Robinson Falls and Lata Iskandar Waterfall. And the water is so cool and very nice. It's made you fresh when you have bathing over there. And of course, that's very related to the Cameron Highland is the strawberry fruits. For example, at Tanah Rata, we have abang strawberry, and now they are quite innovative to create things or to create a nasi lemak strawberry. It's really nice, and the color also is reddish. It's like the strawberry original color. And of course, the weather, sometimes people say we go or we went to the Cameron because we by the weather or the cools. And this is me in this photo, right? So so I take we call it temperature on the this date on October 30th October 2020. So this is around 11:30 a.m. and the weather is 70 to 18 degrees Celsius, still cool considered in the tropical region weather temperature. And of course, there is we call it a green because we still have we call it original jungle at Cameron Highland. For example, they have a reserve forest, and you can see that now they have a new we call it attraction, a rafflesia flowers. It's a very big one found in the area of Cameron Highland. And of course this also become is a very nice track destinations for the hikers. And the most the higher we popular in hiking is a Mossy Mountain in Brinchang. They have 10 tracks over there, and you can see that is look like the Harry Potter in films. So it's very scenery, it's very nice, but not in New Zealand, but in Malaysia at Cameron Highland. That's why this place for me is very unique because I already 10 years at Cameron Highland doing a research, especially for the slope failure. And this is another one is a tourist attraction because we call it agriculture. They love flowers, fruits, and fresh vegetable. From maybe is we call it they're going to the Kia farm or the Mardi, the research center that show you all the species of the tea tree, and then sometime and then they also have the flowers. Okay, the flowers, and this is we call it a very synonym to the female tourist. And then of course sometimes the British people come here, and then the people who love we call it history because here in Cameron is related to the name of the Cameron who is the land surveyor who found the plateau or the highland of the Cameron Highland. And of course, when we are in the Cameron Highland, we can see that many slope failure, and this slope failure come from one of the major causes is from the agriculture is illegal, and we call it happen to landslide, and sometimes the landslide happens on the roads or beside the roads because they don't have the improper protection, especially when they build a retaining wall or they put it a gabion or swanneling. And because of the developments is excessive in this area, so the water catchment, or we call it the herbs, the tree, we call it many, we call it small herbs, like so we call it small fauna, all right. It cannot catch or stop the rainwater. Is very heavy in the hydraulic terms, and then spoil the soil and makes the landslide happen. All right, and we cut, we call it the tree. We cut, we call it any the existing flora, because we set up a new hotel, we set up a petrol stations, illegal farming of agriculture, and due to that, nowadays is a very very danger because we have excessive rainfall that that makes the slope failure become hazardous cases in terms of numbers. And my study showing that the granitic residue soil in Cameron Highland is, we call it a soil that is very fragile to water. And of course, you can see that in the Cameron, you have very steep slope. And unluckily, because we want to build up a roads hotel, we cut the slope and the degree of inclination nearly 90 degrees. It's a very danger to the people's, to the our property. And we put our building on top of slopes, and it make surcharge, and the slope going to fail because it cannot sustain with the a new stress or strain on the hill. All right, so this slope failure, you can see that this is we call it uh, our roads. All right, here also we have, we call it rainfall, we call it landslide, still hilly, and this one also hill. All right, and you can see that the slope failure happens. So the engineers know this one is, we call it shallow failure, and for this one the agriculture men call it erosion. So whatever the term is, actually we spoil the environment because we cut it, we call it the original terrace to make the roads for us, to make it us too easy. And this one also the road, I can see we call it the slope start to fail, and engineer now we call it local failure. My studies show that it's not local failure, they call it shallow failure, and this thing also happen. All right, so this image and this image is same. You can see that a V shape landslide, and then it start already fail. When the rainfall come in, the slope failure become very serious. And of course here we have, we call it the people who kill in this area, where in the Cameron Highlands, and we call it Sungai Getan Tiraso in the Cameron Highlands. So one Bangladeshi workers killed in the Cameron Highland. And this is my, we call it research. I can show that the suction I measure after rain is quite high, is 20 kPa. It means that according to my graph is 20 kPa. All right. So this graph show that we call it maybe this one 20 kPa here is almost the water here. 20, 27.5%. Okay, show you this one is 10, this one is 100. Is 20 a small like this? Y-axis, we're going to x-axis. It means that the moisture content is around 27.5%, and maximums the water that soil in Cameron Highlands can receive only 23.8% according to my research. But you can see that my reading show that is 21, I think. Alright, the suction. So we relate this one, the suction 21. So this is the graph. You can see that almost 27.5% water content. It means that already exceed then the permission of water going to the soil. This is danger. Okay. All right. And you can see that this one is one of a topo we doing by laser. We mapping. This one is at Tanah Rata. We have one mosque, Masjid Abdul Rahman, and you can see that the slope is very heterogeneous, and this is, we call it the shallow failure plane that will be going happen. All right. So this is also my research. And of course, we can see that a lot of sediment. All right, the sediment come to the erosion, sometimes come to the local failure. All right, and because of we call it agriculture is illegal farming, they don't have improper drainage and improper sewerage, and the catchment of water was reduced because we develop building, we develop, so we call it oil palm and road and so on, and lack of original biodiversity because we cut it, and now the excessive rainfall. So groundwater from top of hills carry the soil of Cameron Highland to river. Due to that, we have this sediment in river and cause a flood. So this is the flood in the Cameron Highland. All right, it's a very danger, and we call it sometimes it's a flash flood. And for my suggestion, there is solution for the long term. We must build up a new city, or we must relocate at the existing city, or we put up the system that we call it a smart energy. That's a city or town have gas and water leak detection. We have concern about the public safety. We have data to the internet of things, and we have the traffic management because nowadays in a Cameron, because of COVID-19, many people cannot travel to the overseas, so they travel inside. We call it inbounds. So the traffic management, especially in weekend, is very autonomously, very autonomously in the Cameron Highland. And of course, we want to develop to make sure the Cameron Highland sustainable. We have a smart health and a good water quality supply and system, and we must set up the good education to support the local community for this, we call it from solar, because we don't want to generate more power in the Cameron Highlands. And air pollution also we should control and must be monitored and have a cleaning system for that. And we have also the smart parking or zoning, and maybe we tagging the vehicle or the visitor bus, or we call it car, to make sure the pollution is reduced at Cameron. We control the car exit entry to the Cameron Highland area, and we must have open data so the tourists can know about the landslides. We can know that the traffic management. So we call it they have the access freely, and make sure they are very free to them in terms of cost, and all data we share from the government to the private. And of course, because of we don't want also electromagnetic emissions, maybe we put more cable on that. And then if we have a new hotel built up, so the wall maybe electromagnetic emissions that cannot penetrate the hotel. It means that we can have such of relax and environments, tourism, a new strategy. And we also smart building. We are facing our buildings 12 hour to the sun directions, and we also have the smart homes. And we also have, we call it smart environment and waste management and electric vehicle charging to make sure the emission, especially from exhaust, is reduced or become zero. So this is for me a proposal by the My Transit UITM is solution for long term to make sure that a Cameron to become sustainable in future, maybe for the 500 years more. And we must go in this direction, especially my study about slope failure. We need, we call it the Internet of Things. We need the open data, and we need electromagnetic emission to make sure that everything going smoothly and the people still love come to Cameron Highland from overseas, from local, because we have a unique diversity. We must protect our environment. We must protect our mossy forest. We must protect, we call it our strawberry, and we must make sure that our next directions become very comfortable at Cameron Highland because we buy the weather and we feel like the Western style of living. By next, from me, thank you so very much. See you next year in 2020. I would like to say thank you to the organizing committee of Malaysia Tourism Council 2020. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.